Mr. Hawke, could I ask you whether you feel a little embarrassed tonight at the blood that's on your hands?
You're not improving, are you? I thought you'd make a better start to the year than that.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And 32 years on, that famous question from the ABC's Richard Carlton is still remembered. And in the context of the latest row about ABC bias, in which 7:30's Sarah Ferguson is accused of being too rough on Treasurer Joe Hockey, it's worth another look. Back in February 1983, Bob Hawke had just ousted Bill Hayden as ALP leader, and Carlton was sure he had blood on his hands.
Can you expect people to believe that you didn't know that that meeting was going to take place?
I can expect people to believe that you are a damned impertinence, Mr. Carlton. I can expect them to believe that when I say something, that I tell the truth. You can sit there with your silly quizzical face. You've got a reputation right around this country. Yeah, it's looking better still. You've got a reputation for your impertinence, your refusal to accept people at their face value, to try and ridicule the integrity of people. Now, I don't mind my integrity being on the line against yours.
Weeks later, Bob Hawke was Prime Minister after a landslide victory. Richard Carlton also went on to a stellar career. So do we really need to get worked up about whether Sarah Ferguson was too mean to the Treasurer last May, with her opening question about his budget?
Congratulations on your first budget. We need to say that too.
Well, thank you.
Now, you've just delivered that budget. It's a budget with a new tax, with levies, with co-payments. Is it liberating for a politician to decide election promises don't matter?
Pretty tame stuff, really, at least by comparison. Now, that Ferguson interview with Joe Hockey about new taxes and broken promises was described last week by an ABC editorial review as gripping television. But Colleen Ryan, a former editor of the Australian Financial Review, who was commissioned to audit the ABC's budget coverage, went on to ask...
But was it fair and impartial? Did it grant due respect to the interviewee? Would the average viewer consider its tone, on the part of Ferguson, as so aggressive that it exhibited bias?
Ryan's ABC review found two other parts of Ferguson's interview that gave rise to similar concerns. First was this exchange about broken promises.
Are you saying that individual promises made by an opposition leader no longer matter?
Well, we can spend the whole conversation talking about the process
that's a yes
promises.
or no question.
Second was a reprimand to Mr Hockey after he described the budget's new levies and his Medicare co-payment as mere adjustments. Ferguson came back at him.
They're still
that's
taxes.
A good sign.
I don't need to teach you, Treasurer, what a tax is. You know that a co-payment, a levy and a tax are all taxes by any other name. Am I correct?
Yes.
So there are new taxes in your budget.
There are increases in taxes.
New taxes in your budget.
There's no doubt it was strong stuff. But did that make it biased or simply robust? Colleen Ryan's verdict on those last two exchanges was that they did
not meet the impartiality guidelines to treat the interviewee with civility and respect unless there is a compelling reason not to do so.
Frankly, I don't agree with her. But did Ryan believe that this made Ferguson's entire interview biased? Well, not exactly. It may have created the perception of bias, she said, for those who watched it. Or, as Ryan put it, the tone of Ferguson's interview
could have been interpreted by some viewers to be a potential breach of the ABC's impartiality guidelines.
Colleen Ryan's careful and considered criticism was soon being parlayed into a Fairfax Media headline where all conditionality and nuance had been removed.
Sarah Ferguson interview with Joe Hockey breached ABC bias guidelines. Review.
And before long, social media was reacting with just as much subtlety, with a number of prominent journalists leaping to Ferguson's defence. Channel 9's political editor, Laurie Oakes, for example, took to Twitter to tell his 104,000 followers it was
a stupid ruling. It was an excellent interview.
Next day, on Sydney's Radio 2UE, drive time host Justin Smith rang into the breakfast show to tell his mates,
I think that entire finding about Sarah Ferguson over that interview is absolute koala urine.
Sydney Radio 2GB's Ben Fordham was equally scathing, declaring himself to be gobsmacked. Fordham played Ferguson's first question to his listeners and then asked them,
what's wrong with that? Geez, I'm glad they don't listen to this radio station or this radio show and conduct reviews of us. Give us a break and get in the real world.
By now, 7:30's former host, Kerry O'Brien, had also weighed into the bias debate, telling Crikey,
Ferguson's questions were absolutely spot on.
And the ABC's ex-political editor, Jim Middleton, now at Sky, told Media Watch that he agreed.
Sarah Ferguson's opening question was inspired, and I think that subsequent political events have revealed it to be most appropriate.
ABC News was also quick to disown Ryan's conclusion. But the usual critics over at News Corp seized on the report as yet more proof of what they have long believed.
ABC. Auntie's bias crisis. The ABC is trying to destroy Tony Abbott. Its bias, actually unlawful, has never been so ruthless.
Andrew Bolt told his readers, and this was right, that Ryan's review had raised concerns about 4 items broadcast by the ABC in Budget Week, out of a total of 76, of which Ferguson's, he said, was the most dramatic. Meanwhile, on Sky, another confirmed ABC critic, Chris Kenny, was also raising the alarm.
When you look at the questions that Sarah Ferguson asked, they are really they are framed from such a loopy left perspective, sort of Occupy Wall Street mentality. It's like, you're hurting families here, but what are you doing to the corporates? How are you going to get the evil corporates? It's that sort of mentality.
Well, everyone's entitled to their opinion, even if it's as one-sided as Chris Kenny's and Andrew Bolt's often is. But it's worth pointing out that Colleen Ryan's final conclusion actually gave the ABC a pretty clean bill of health, saying,
"In my assessment, the overall quality of the budget coverage was excellent. I found no hint in any of the coverage that either stated or implied that any perspective was the editorial opinion of the ABC."
Ryan also praised Ferguson's professionalism, saying the ABC host had done a fine job on budget night in difficult circumstances. Her interview with Shadow Treasurer Chris Bowen, said Ryan, had been similarly tough and aggressive. And issues of tone aside, she concluded,
"Ferguson is an intelligent and incisive interviewer who treats both sides of politics in the same manner and gives no sense of where her own political views may lie. Scrutiny is an important element of quality current affairs television, and Ferguson performs this admirably."
All in all, a pretty good reference. Note, she treats both sides of politics in the same manner. Now, we believe it's a political interviewer's job to ask tough questions and to get answers. And Sarah Ferguson is one of the best. Aggressive, maybe, but biased, she is not. But is it a good idea to ponder these things in public, as the ABC is committed to doing? Former 7:30 host Quentin Dempster reckons it's daft and believes the new regime is
a preemptive buckle to the strident vilification of the public broadcaster from the Murdoch press.
But Jim Middleton, who spent more than 4 decades at the ABC, thinks it's brave and laudable, telling MediaWatch,
"I admire the courage of the ABC in opening itself up to independent scrutiny in this way, and I'm glad it intends to continue the process despite the fallout from this episode."
So, watch this space for more. The ABC is committed to 4 of these reviews a year, and no doubt they'll continue to cause a fuss. Now, since the ABC spends taxpayers' money and should serve all Australians, we reckon such scrutiny is inevitable. But just imagine what would happen if Sydney's Radio 2GB asked the Bias Police, as Ben Fordham suggested, to assess some of its famous political encounters, like this one.
Do you understand, Julia, that you are the issue today because there are people now saying your name is not Julia, but Julia, and they are saying that we've got a liar running the country.
Or, indeed, this Ray Hadley interview with the then Treasurer Wayne Swan back in 2010.
The insulation was a rort, Treasurer. It was a rort from beginning to end. That's why it's no longer on the land. That's why Greg Combo's got the mop and bucket. Well, I can't let you just go on without some sort of interruption.
Well, you can start screaming and yelling all you like, and I'll hang on and try and give my answers.
Think, too, what might happen if Channel 9 were to apply the ABC's super-sensitive bias detector to some of its recent political jousts, like Karl Stefanovic's question to the PM in December, again about that budget.
The reality here is that the budget position is in a shambles, and every day it does get worse. It's not getting better.
Well, it's not in a shambles.
No one is buying what you are selling is the point. No one is buying what you are selling, what you are laying down, and that's the problem.
Well.
And, of course, there was Laurie Oakes's infamous question to Joe Hockey last May, only a matter of minutes after the Treasurer defended his budget to the ABC's Sarah Ferguson.
You were dancing in your office before you got up to give that speech. Why were you dancing?
Dancing?
Yeah, you put on a song called This Will Be the Best Day of My Life and danced with your wife.
In my humble opinion, that was below the belt, and MediaWatch said so at the time. But just imagine what the ABC Bias Review, or Auntie's friends at News Corp, would have made of it. But now, to lighter matters, and yes, it's happy birthday to a great Australian icon.
Biscuit maker Arnott's is celebrating its 150th birthday.
Happy birthday to Arnott's, 150 years old today. Still Aussie-owned.
I
Not
know.
many of the icons are.
Arnott's is celebrating its 150-year anniversary this year, and the company's strength in staying all-Australian is being praised by brand experts.
Well, Australian icon it may be, but Arnott's is actually owned by the giant American Campbell Soup Company, which bought it way back in 1997. But the company's success in keeping production in Australia was big news in Arnott's birthday press release, and the media ate it up. And that's not all they took from the Bicky maker's birthday parcel, which had stills, key facts, video and interviews, so no one needed to step outside the studio. 10's 2-minute TV news story was manufactured almost entirely from material supplied by the company, like this.
From humble beginnings, Arnott's started as a small bakery in Newcastle.
Or this video of the celebrity chef who's created new biscuit flavours for the company.
Got a place in everyone's hearts, and I think it'll be very hard to beat it.
And this grab from Arnott's marketing director to tell us how much we love them.
We're in 95% of all Australian households. We're exported to over 40 countries around the world.
And there were even cameos from happy workers.
Some making their own history at Arnott's.
Back at Ashfield on line 2 over a choc galore biscuit.
Channel 7's somewhat shorter news item also picked out the oven-baked, pre-packed story of Arnott's factory romance.
In its lifetime, the company has employed close to 50,000 people, including a couple whose love blossomed on the production line.
I reckon it's Friday.
Yeah,
He reckons it's choc galore.
It could have been either.
And it was not just TV who came to the party. The Sunday Telegraph also featured Love on the Line in print, online and its Facebook page. But they did at least go down to the factory and take their own photos. So, is there anything wrong with this? Well, not if you prefer PR to real news. So, let's join in and wish the Australian-American biscuit maker many happy returns, as we're sure there will be. Last February, you may remember, Tim Tams turned 50, and Channel 9's Today Show flew all the way to Queensland, where Tim Tams was filming a TV commercial, and then held a knees up in the studio.
Welcome back to the show. How good are Tim Tams?
Yeah. 10 out of 10.
Do you know what, Lisa?
What, Carl?
They can get better.
Do you reckon?
Nah.
So, let's get our diaries out. Next year, we're looking forward to Shapes turning 62, Monte Carlos will be 90, and Iced Vovos, can you believe it, will be 110. And don't think the ABC won't be throwing a party. When Peanut Butter Tim Tams picked up a Shonky Award recently from Choice magazine, because there are no nuts in them and fewer in the packet, viewers came back to the studio to 7:30 host Lee Sales to find that, luckily, she had a packet to hand.
Can I just say, clearly our office really found these peanut Tim Tams unacceptable, judging by the evidence.
Personally, I'd prefer to see a few politicians get roasted than biscuits get puffed. Provided the questions are fair and the tone is not too aggressive, I'm with former Queensland Premier Peter Beattie, who told Sky News that as far as he was concerned, people like Lee Sales and Sarah Ferguson should be able to ask whatever they like.
Politicians go into public life, they're not protected species. You should be able to answer whatever's thrown at you. If it's Paul Murray or someone else in the ABC, I don't care. If you can't handle it, then you shouldn't be in the business. And the questions should be as tough as they come. And I don't care whether their lip curls or their hair flows all over their face. If they haven't got the gumption to answer the question, then they shouldn't be in the position. That's my view. The ABC's got this crazy charter they carry on about, but as far as I'm concerned, the question should be as tough as they can be. And frankly, that's the way a democracy works.
Well said. And you can read more about tonight's stories, including a copy of the ABC's editorial review, on our website, where you can also get a transcript and download the programme. You can also catch up with us on iView and contact me or MediaWatch on Twitter. But for now, until next week, that's all from us. Goodbye.